Kenny Mireya Finol was a 26-year-old Venezuelan woman who tried to escape the economic and political turmoil in her home country. An organized crime group in Mexico murdered and mutilated her. I'm speaking on behalf of Kenny and 16 other women who have been disappeared and are still missing and who were probably connected to the same organized crime group that murdered her, filmed their assault and torture, and then killed them and sold the videos to porn sites like PornHub. The organized criminal group who ran the escort website Zona Divas procured their victims from Venezuela and Colombia to bring them into Mexico under the radar of Mexico's migration authorities, so they failed to record their existence within the borders of Mexico. After being transported to Mexico, the women's passports and all of their legal documents were confiscated. They lived under debt bondage. They were coerced as part of their trafficking debt repayment to permit themselves to be photographed by a pimp pornographer who is now in jail for trafficking in persons. Survivors testified that they resisted, cried, and begged not to be sexually humiliated while being filmed. They were drugged and coerced into smiling for the camera. The women's human rights were violated in the production of the gang's videos that were then sold and uploaded to websites like PornHub. The gang threatened to send videos to the women's children, and they threatened to kill the women's relatives. In order to force the women's compliance, the mafia criminals lied to the women, promised them legal documents to work, and forced them to sign fake agreements with websites like PornHub. These contracts were no more valid than confessions signed by prisoners of war. They are coerced by torture. Consent is now being discussed by the Canadian Parliament. Not only were these women's consents invalid because the women were tortured in order to obtain the consent, but when the crime of trafficking occurs, international law signed by Canada states that consent on behalf of the victim is irrelevant. The conduct that is under prosecution is that of the trafficker who abuses his position of power to exploit victims and gain profit. Canada must presume trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation when videos of unidentified women by unidentified uploaders of rapes and murders and the context of these filmed human rights violations have occurred in unknown circumstances. None of these women is able to enforce her human right to demand that PornHub remove her videos. The voices of these 22 women have been silenced forever by MindGeek's PornHub's marketing their rapes as sexual entertainment. Tragically, victims of film rape and torture don't even know that their brutal humiliation is being masturbated over every day on PornHub. Canada has a responsibility to make MindGeek, PornHub stop facilitating and profiting from this exploitation. They owe the victims a debt of apology and repair.